In 1916, the most influential psychologist who ever lived wrote a book so dangerous that he hid it for the rest of his life and signed it with the name of a heretic the church had burned 17 centuries earlier. His name was Carl Jung. The book is the Red Book. It stayed locked away until 2009. When the world finally read it, they found something shocking. The father of modern psychology was speaking the language of the Gnostics, the very people the church spent 16 centuries trying to erase. Tonight, I am going to show you exactly what Jung found in those forbidden depths, the feminine wisdom he met face to face, the ancient name he gave her, and why he came to believe that what the church called heresy was the true way home. He spoke of their pleroma. He met Sophia, and he became convinced they had mapped the human soul with a precision science is only now beginning to understand. If you have ever heard a voice beneath your own thoughts, quieter, wiser, and more real than the rest, comment "I am awake" below. Jung had a name for the ones who finally turn and listen. He said they had begun to wake up. So how does the founder of modern psychology end up studying scriptures that were burned as heresy in the 4th century? It began with a breakdown, or what looked like one. Around the year 1913, Jung entered a period he later called his confrontation with the unconscious. The images and voices of his own deep mind began rising with such force that he feared, in his own words, that he might be losing his sanity. But he did the one thing almost no one does. He did not run. He sat down with the figures that appeared to him, and he let them speak, and he wrote down what they said. And one of the first things that came out of him in 1916 was a strange short text he titled "The 7 Sermons to the Dead." Here is the detail that matters. Jung did not put his own name on it. He signed it with the name of Basilides, a real Gnostic teacher who had lived in Alexandria in the 2nd century. And he wrote it entirely in the language of the Gnostics. It spoke of the pleroma, the fullness, the divine totality out of which all things come and into which all things return. Think about how strange that is. The most respected scientist of his age was writing scripture in the borrowed voice of a heretic 1700 years dead because that ancient, forbidden language was the only one that fit what he had actually seen. And the more he read of them, the clearer it became. The Gnostics of the 1st centuries had not been writing crude superstition the way his church had taught him. They had been writing a precise map of the inner world of the psyche wrapped in the language of myth. When they wrote of a divine spark trapped in matter, Jung recognized the true self buried under the everyday ego. When they wrote of the Archons, the powers that keep the soul asleep, he recognized the unconscious patterns that quietly run a person's life without their permission. When they wrote of gnosis, direct inner knowing, he recognized the exact process he was guiding his patients through every day. The Gnostics had been doing depth psychology 2,000 years too early, and the institution that came after them had declared them enemies and fed their books to the fire. There was even a figure in his sermons named Abraxas, a god beyond the easy split of good and evil, a totality that contained both. The Orthodox world wanted a clean god of light and a separate devil of darkness. Jung, looking honestly into the human soul, found what the Gnostics had found, that the real thing is bigger and stranger than that comfortable division, and that wholeness means facing all of it. That alone was enough to make respectable people very uncomfortable. What I am about to show you, the feminine figure standing at the very center of all of it, is one layer of a far larger map that Jung only ever pointed toward. The complete teaching those erased communities left behind is what I gathered into the ancient code. But stay with me, because the figure Jung met in his own depths may be one you have already met in yours. At the center of everything Jung found in the Red Book, in the sermons, in his patience, and in his own depths was a figure he could never explain away, a feminine presence, a wisdom that was not his intellect and not his reason, but something deeper that seemed to know things his conscious mind did not. In his psychology, he gave her a clinical name, the anima, the inner feminine, The soul image that he said lives within every person and works as the bridge between the small ego and the deep self. But when Jung traced her backward through history, he found that the Gnostics had met the very same figure and that they had already given her a name. They called her Sophia, wisdom, the divine feminine who had fallen from the fullness down into the world, and whose entire story was the long story of finding the way back home. Sit with what that actually means. The most rigorous psychologist of the modern age looked into the depths of the human soul, found a feminine wisdom at the heart of it, and then discovered that an erased ancient people had already named her and mapped her whole journey 16 centuries before he was born, and he did not treat it as a coincidence. Near the end of his life, he wrote a book in which Sophia stands at the center, arguing, in effect, that the divine itself remained incomplete until it was reunited with this feminine wisdom. Coming from the founder of analytical psychology, that was not a poetic flourish. It was a quiet earthquake under the foundations of everything respectable religion and respectable science both believed. And he gave the road toward her a name as well: individuation. The slow, lifelong work of becoming whole, of turning back toward the buried, exiled, and rejected parts of yourself and integrating them, one by one, until the small, frightened ego is no longer running the show and the deep self, the spark, comes to the center where it belongs. Lay the Gnostic texts beside Jung's own notes, and the overlap stops looking like resemblance and starts looking like identity. What they called the return of the soul to the pleroma, he called individuation, becoming whole. What they called the divine spark, he called the self. What they called Sophia, he met as the anima. Two maps of the exact same country, drawn 2,000 years apart by people who were never permitted to meet. He even noticed how she announces herself. Those strange, meaningful coincidences, the moment the right book falls open, the dream that answers a question you never spoke aloud, the encounter that arrives exactly when you needed it. Jung gave that its own name too: synchronicity. He came to see it as the deep self, the wisdom underneath, reaching through the surface of ordinary life to get your attention. The Gnostics would have said it more simply. They would have said, "That is Sophia calling you back." The only real difference between the two maps is what it cost to draw them. The Gnostics said it out loud, in the open language of the sacred, and they were burned for it. Jung said it in the careful language of science, and he was tolerated, barely, and still he hid his deepest book until he was safely dead. The same map, the same fear, on the part of those who never wanted it found. And if something in you recognizes this, if the voice under your thoughts grew a little louder as you listened, leave "I am awake" in the comments now, not at the end. You are not learning something foreign tonight. You are remembering something Jung spent 16 years writing down by lamplight, and that the Gnostics were willing to die to keep alive. What you are feeling right now, the recognition, the pull toward that wisdom underneath your own thoughts, is the exact doorway Jung spent his life mapping, and the one the Gnostics mapped long before him. But Jung only ever pointed at the door. The complete teaching, what those texts actually say about the descent of Sophia, the spark sealed inside you, and the practices the early communities used to begin the return to wholeness while still alive, still breathing lives in the ancient code. 5 teachings drawn from the very texts Jung wrote his secret sermons in the voice of. The whole map he could only gesture toward, gathered into one entry. The full value inside is over $280. Today's access is $67, and 131 seekers have already walked through that door. The link is in the pinned comment and the description. Stay with me, because what comes next is the reason both the Gnostics and Jung were so afraid to say this out loud. So why the fear? Why did an empire burn the Gnostics? And why did the most famous psychologist of the modern world keep his real discovery locked in a drawer for half a century? Because both of them were saying the same dangerous thing: that the divine is not only above you, administered and rationed by an institution, it is also within you, waiting to be remembered and reachable directly through the depths of your own soul. To the Church of the 4th century, that single idea was the end of its monopoly. If the kingdom is genuinely within, the gatekeeper becomes unnecessary. And to the scientific establishment of Jung's own day, the claim that the psyche opens onto something truly sacred was an embarrassment to be managed. It broke the comfortable rule that said, your inner world is nothing but chemistry and childhood. Both institutions had built their entire authority on standing between you and your own depths, and both had every reason in the world to bury the map that told you you could go there yourself. But here is the thing, neither of them could ever actually erase the territory is still in you. The anima, the self, the spark, Sophia, whatever name you give her, the inner wisdom Jung met and the Gnostics' name did not disappear when the books were burned. She is simply waiting, under the noise of your days, for you to turn toward her instead of away. And turning toward her requires no degree, no priest, and no one's permission. Jung's own method was almost embarrassingly simple. At the end of the day, in the quiet, he would let the inner images rise without judging or editing them, and he would listen. He called it active imagination. You can do a smaller version of it tonight, before sleep, in the dark. Stop talking to yourself for 60 seconds. Ask inwardly one honest question, and then, instead of answering it with your usual rush of thoughts, simply wait and listen for what rises underneath them. That quiet that answers is the very beginning of the conversation Jung kept for 16 years. I built a structured nightly version of exactly this into the Sophia journal, but understand me, even tonight, with nothing in your hands, you can already take the first minute of it. Carl Jung died in 1961, and for nearly 50 years his red book stayed locked away, too strange, too sacred, and too dangerous for the world he had lived in. When it was finally opened in 2009, what people found inside was not the notebook of a madman. It was the careful, hand-painted record of a deeply rational man who had gone down into his own depths and found, waiting there, the same wisdom an erased people had once died to preserve. He found that you are not empty. He found that the voice underneath your thoughts is not a defect to be silenced. He found a feminine wisdom living at the center of the soul, and when he went looking for her name, history handed him the one the church had tried hardest to burn, Sophia. And he found that the way home was never up and out, toward some distant authority. It was down and in, toward the spark that had been in you the entire time. The Gnostics were silenced. Jung was tolerated and stayed quiet. But the map outlived them both, and tonight, it is in you. So before you sleep, turn toward the voice instead of away from it. Ask it one honest thing and wait. And if you stayed with me all the way to the end of this, comment, I am awake, and tell me, when did you first hear the voice that is not quite you? I read every one. And subscribe not to follow me, but to keep remembering alongside the others who are turning inward too. Then close your eyes and say the words the seekers said when the light underneath finally answered, I am awake.